Last league, heist farming meta has changed a lot with removal of alternate quality gems and all blueprints giving all types of rewards at the end. And this league it has changed even more with changes to stack decks, which has been the best money maker when it comes to heist. We also got some changes to the scarabs and we got new scarabs, which means that some of the chest rewards that drop them drop more loot. So because I have been running a ton of Heist this league, I want to give you kinda like a meta report on which chests are now worth revealing and opening in Heist, what are the different ways you can run it, with what build, what rogue gear to use, and also I want to show you the results of 100 blueprints test that I just finished. Okay, so let's start with talking about the reward rooms in Heist. So which ones you should be revealing, which ones you should be opening, and which one you should just avoid. And to help with that, I did prepare this tier list of all of the highest reward rooms. And keep in mind, this is the tier list of the situation that is right now. And I do predict that this time around, the value of all of these chests is gonna be changing throughout the league. Previously, Divination was pretty much always the best chest. You always wanted to open it because it would drop a lot of stacked decks. And this league, it drops less stacked decks, which makes it less valuable. And a lot of other rooms now are dropping scarabs, which means that a lot of rooms are pretty good right now and their value depends on the scarab prices. Also, you have to remember that when you are revealing these rooms, you have to pay for the reveals with rogue markers. So as of right now, rogue markers go for 300 for 1 chaos, which means that for 1 reveal on average of these rooms, you're gonna have to pay around 5 chaos, because most of the time, if you use a counter reveal, you have to pay around 1.5k markers. Also, on top of that, you have to run contracts to get those reveals, but to do that, you usually pay around 3 to 5 chaos for the counter or perception contracts, which most of the time pay for themselves because you get some rogue markers from them. Unless you are running the deceptions, then you're probably gonna be paying a little bit more. But I personally, I don't really like running deception. Most of the time I run the counter ones, which means in my opinion, I am not really paying for contracts, unless of course we count the time that you have to spend running them. Okay, so let's start with the S tier, which as of right now is probably surprising to a lot of you. In my opinion, the best room right now to reveal is the Essence. So in my test of the 100 blueprints that I'm gonna be showing you, I did run most of these blueprints with revealed Essence rooms. The reason why Essence is so good right now is it not only drops the Screaming Essences, it actually cannot drop the Shrieking or Deafening, so it's just the Screaming ones. It's not that amazing, but it also drops the Essence Scarabs, and right now Essence Scarabs are very expensive. On top of that, all of these rooms that do drop Scarabs, some of them drop them way more often than the other ones, and Essence Scarabs actually drop very, very often. So just the regular Essence Scarabs early on in the league were around 4 chaos. For the past few days they were 3 chaos. Now they are dropping down a little bit. So right now they are around 2.5 chaos, which is still quite a lot, especially considering you drop them almost in every single chest. Also, the Essence Scarab of Ascent right now go for between 20 to 30 chaos, and Scarab of Calcification goes for a little bit less than 100 chaos, and early on it was actually around 140 chaos, so they are very, very expensive, although they are pretty rare. But still, most of the Essence Scarabs are very expensive. The only one that is cheap is the Essence Scarab of Stability, but we don't care too much about that because we already make money from the other Scarabs. So Essence Room, in my opinion, is definitely the best one right now. And the second best room, which is in the A tier, is the Fragments room, which is basically the Scarabs room, because most of the rewards you're gonna get from it are gonna be Scarabs. You do also get the Sacrifice Fragments, but they are not really worth too much, and you actually do drop quite a lot of Scarabs from them. The only reason why it is in the A tier, not S tier, is because they drop a lot of different Scarabs, and most of them are actually pretty cheap, and most of them are below 1 chaos, but occasionally you're gonna drop some that are worth way more. So this one has a high potential to be in the S tier if some of the Scarabs are gonna go up in price, but it's just very random, and I haven't tested, to be honest, it properly, and I would have to do a very large sample size to properly evaluate this room, because you could just get lucky or unlucky, and it would definitely change the outcome of the test. So when it comes to revealing rooms, I would definitely reveal the essence rooms right now. You could reveal the fragments, but to be honest, I don't really like revealing too many rooms because I don't want to run too many contracts. I just want to run blueprints as often as possible. So when I was running blueprints, I was just revealing the essence, but fragments is also definitely worth revealing right now. Now let's move on to the B tier, which in my opinion are chests that you should be opening when you are running blueprints, but you probably shouldn't be revealing them because of the price of 5C per reveal. They are probably not really worth it. Currency, of course, is just gonna drop you a bunch of currency. Occasionally you're gonna see a divine. This room actually might be in the A tier if you use a trinket that converts chaos orbs to divines. But to be honest, last league I ran a bunch of blueprints with that trinket, and I didn't really drop that many divines. So even with that trinket, it might not really be worth revealing. But for opening, you're gonna get some currency, so it is pretty good. Divination, like I mentioned, got a pretty big nerf. Used to drop 4 stacked decks from each chest, and each room has 2 chests, so you would drop at least 8, and you would also occasionally drop some divination cards, but now you never drop any divination cards and you only drop 2 stacked decks from chest, which means that from 2 chests per room you drop 4 of them, and price of stacked decks right now is a little bit less than 2 chaos, but let's say it's even 2 chaos. That would mean you make 8 chaos per room. With prices of reveal 5C, you would make only 3 chaos, which means that it's not really worth revealing them. But when it comes to opening, you're gonna still get some loot. And also occasionally you're gonna get divination scarabs, but unfortunately for this reward type, you're not gonna see scarab too often. But if for some reason these scarabs go up in value, even with them being super rare, it might be worth even revealing them. But as of right now, I wouldn't really do it. Ultimatum is actually pretty good consistent money because it drops mostly just catalysts. And catalysts are pretty expensive. I don't think there is any catalyst right now that is worth less than 1 chaos. A lot of them are 2 chaos, and there are some that are worth around 10 chaos even. But also it drops some scarabs, but I don't think this room drops too many scarabs. I think it's similar to the divination, and ultimatum scarabs are also pretty cheap, so I wouldn't really take the scarabs into account, but just the catalysts are definitely making this chest worth opening. Then the next one is maps, and this one is actually similar to the scarabs, where it just drops a bunch of random things. So it's of course gonna drop some maps, but it also drops some map currency, which most of the time is just Orb of Horizon. It also drops Veiled Scarabs, so that's why it's similar to the Scarab room. And also occasionally it is going to drop some Guardian maps, but they are not too common. So it's just a bunch of random things. It's really hard to evaluate this one, but I think it's very similar to the other ones when it comes to value. Now let's move on to the C tier. So this tier are rooms that could be still worth opening, but usually when you run blueprints, you don't have enough alert to open all of these. Most of the time, just opening essence, fragment, currency, divination, ultimatum, and maps are gonna be enough to fill your alert bar. But in some situations, you might still have some alert bar left, and if you see any of these chests, you could open them. But if you want to run more blueprints per hour just to get more of the rewards at the end, you can choose to ignore them. So these rooms are fossils. The reason why fossil is in C tier, not in B tier, is because there's just a bunch of random fossils, and most of the time when you sell fossils, you want to sell them in bulk, so you're not gonna have too many of them, so it's just annoying to sell them. So that's why I just don't really like opening them. But a lot of fossils are decent money, so if you don't mind selling them, you can still open this chest. The next one is Harbinger, and Harbinger actually doesn't really drop that much loot. It's just the currency shards, and unfortunately it cannot drop the fractured or mirror shards, so the best ones are just gonna be chaos shards, annulment shard, exalted shards, and that's pretty much it, and also the ancient shards, but all of them are pretty cheap. The one good thing about Harbinger is that it drops Harbinger scarabs, which actually are rising in price. Harbinger is pretty popular this league, and fracture orbs are pretty expensive, so that makes this room actually pretty good. But unfortunately, similarly to the divination room, it doesn't drop them too often. I actually haven't tested this one that properly, so maybe they drop a little bit more common than I think, but I'm pretty sure they are actually pretty rare. Next one is Legion, similar situation to Harbinger. Loot is pretty bad. The splinters and incubators are the only thing that you drop from this chest, and when it comes to incubators, when you run Heist, you don't really kill that many monsters, so you're probably not even gonna be able to pop them. But the one good thing about Legion, just like Harbinger, is that it drops expensive scarabs, but unfortunately the Legion scarabs are actually going down in price when Harbinger are going up. Of course, situation can change, I guess we will have to see. And Legion scarabs are also pretty rare, just like the Harbinger. And the next room is the gems room. So this one is just gonna drop a bunch of gems. Most of them are gonna be high quality or high level, but to be honest, similarly to the fossil room, it is annoying to sell them, sort through them, and so on. But also this room is gonna drop the stacks of gem cutters, and depending on their price, it actually is still worth opening them just for the gem cutters. But I think right now they are not that expensive, and also you don't see them too often. Of course, you can still drop the Empower, Enlighter, or Enhance, but it's not gonna happen too often, so you could open them from time to time just for the chance that you get one of these gems, also for the gem cutters, and if you want to, you can pick up some of random gems, but generally it's not that amazing. And the last one in C tier is the Breach Room, which I actually also was considering putting in D tier, but the reason why I did put it in the C tier is that on top of dropping the Breach Splinters, which are not that expensive, it also drops Breach Scarabs, but unlike the Harbinger and Legion, Breach Scarabs are actually pretty common, and they are not crazy expensive, but they're also not crazy cheap. I think most of them are above 1 Chaos, so they are decent. Not amazing, but decent. And also this chest drops the breach rings. So if you get 60 breach rings, you can sell them to vendor for grasping mail, which can be pretty expensive. So it's not that amazing, not that bad, it's just somewhere in the middle. And now let's move on to the D tier. And in this tier, there are chests that I wouldn't really recommend opening, but there is still something in them that could justify opening them sometimes. So first one is the Blight chest. So Blight actually drops scarabs pretty often, but unfortunately all of the Blight scarabs are pretty cheap, so you're not really gonna make any money from it. And when it comes to the regular rewards, you're just gonna drop some cheap oils and occasionally a map that contains a Blight, which are also not really expensive. Then the next one is the unique chest, and unfortunately most of the time when you're gonna open this chest, on your loot filter is just nothing gonna show up if you're hiding most of the 1C uniques. It does drop the reliquary scarabs, but these scarabs are also pretty rare. So most of the time you're not really gonna drop anything, so it's not really worth opening. Then the next one is the jewelry chest, which is similar to unique. It's just gonna drop some jewelry, which most of the time are not really worth anything, but it actually drops occasionally the synthesis and fractured jewelry, which can be worth something. In fact, this league I did drop one amethyst ring with fractured tier 1 life from this chest, and I sold it for 4 divines. And you also can drop the rings with +1 power charge, so you can make quite a lot of money from this. Unfortunately, I would say maybe like 1 in 50 or 100 rooms you're gonna find something, so most of the time it's just a waste of time, but you can still occasionally find something, kinda like the unique chest. And Delirium, I actually was considering putting it in the F tier, but it has some potential. It drops Delirium Scarab, which to be honest I don't even know if they are common or not, because I just avoided this chest. And all of the Delirium Scarabs are cheap, just like in Blight, but it also drops the Cluster Jewels. So Cluster Jewels, most of the time are also not really gonna be worth anything, and I don't believe you can drop the item level 84, the cluster jewels, so you're not really gonna make any money from them because most of the cluster jewels that are expensive are item level 84. But maybe in some situations you need some cluster jewels, or some of them are expensive. Unfortunately, right now I don't think there are any cluster jewels below item level 84 that are worth anything, so I would just avoid opening it. And then we have in the F tier chests that I would just never recommend opening. So armor and weapon is pretty much the same like jewelry. Most of the time you're not gonna drop anything, but occasionally you can drop something that is worth a lot if it's synthesis or fracture, but it's way more rare than jewelry. You can also drop some sixlings, but at this point of the league they are not really worth that much, and most of the time they are gonna be on a bad base, and you also don't really drop too many sixlings, so I would just avoid opening. The only time I would open them is maybe at the league start, but even at the league start it's not that amazing. Then we have Abyss. Abyss, similar to Delirium, it drops some scarabs, and it also drops Abyss Jewel, which can be worth something, but most of the time it's just gonna be not worth anything. And talismans, well, are just talismans. You're never really gonna pick them up. You might identify them, and sometimes they are gonna have useful modifiers, but it's just not worth your time. Okay, to summarize, in the S tier we have Essence rooms, which right now in my opinion are the best rooms. I would always reveal them. Unfortunately, Essence scarabs are slowly dropping down in price, so maybe it's gonna be worth less to open them. In the A tier we have scarabs, which I also recommend revealing. They are pretty RNG, but on average you should make pretty good profit from them. Then in the B tier are the chests that I wouldn't recommend revealing, but they still can definitely be worth opening. They're gonna give you a little bit of currency, but the reveal cost is just not worth revealing them, and also extra time running the contracts. Then in the C tier are the chests that I would only open if I just have a little bit of extra alert remaining after opening these chests. And even in that situation, most of the time you would just rather go to the end, get the reward, and go back to the entrance. It just might not be worth your time, but there is still some potential in some of these rooms. D tier is basically C tier, but just worse. There's basically less chances for there to be any potential in these rooms. And then F tier I would just never open. Now the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to these rooms is which ones have the biggest potential when it comes to changes in the future. So the first one is the Essence. I already have been seeing that Essence scarabs are going down in price, so it's probably gonna go down to at least A tier. It's probably gonna be still on the same level of fragments. I mean, of course, if scarabs are gonna drastically go down in price, it might go down even to the B tier. But I think because essences are almost always worth a lot, it's never gonna go down below B tier. On the opposite, most of the scarabs are actually gaining in value, so the fragment rooms is probably gonna become better, or at least it's gonna be the same, but essence is gonna go down in price, so fragment room is just gonna automatically become better. When it comes to the B tier, the only change that I can think of is maybe divination room is gonna become better if somehow stack decks go up in price, or maybe divination scarabs are just so ridiculously expensive that even though they are rare in here, it is still gonna be worth revealing them. But I don't think it's gonna go down in price. And I don't think any of these ones are gonna go down in price. Maybe the ultimatum, if somehow people are just farming a lot of ultimatum and catalysts are very cheap. When it comes to the C tier, Harbinger has actually a pretty high potential to be in B tier, maybe even higher, because Harbinger scarabs are going up in price. I don't think any of the other ones are gonna be better. If anything, they might actually go down in tier, especially something like Breach or even Legion and Gems if Gemcutter Prisms are worth not too much. Then in D tier, maybe jewelry would go up in price if suddenly fracture and synthesis items are very expensive. Other than that, I don't think anything is gonna change. Maybe also delirium if suddenly delirium scarabs are gonna be more expensive, because they are actually pretty common from this room. It's just they are not really worth anything. And similarly in F tier we have Abyss. Abyss, I don't think scarabs are worth too much right now, but they could go up in value, and I don't think any of the other ones are gonna change for now. But of course, everything is subject to change. This is just tier list for now. So don't ask me, oh, what are the best rooms right now in the week or something, because I'm probably not gonna be running Heist at this point. Just run few rooms, look at the rewards that you are getting, check the prices of stuff, and decide for yourself which ones are the best to open or to reveal. Okay, so now let's talk about what are the different ways you can run the Heist. Because in my opinion, there is not a single best way you can run it. Most of the time, it's just gonna come down to personal preference and current economy. So the first one is what I would call blueprints rushing. So for this strategy, you would just grab a bunch of blueprints. You want to scour them because quantity doesn't really do anything. It just increases the amount of loot you get from killing monsters. And then you just go to the planning room, you plan, and when you plan, you always want to choose the person with the highest level, because the higher the level, the faster they are gonna do the job. So you're gonna choose the one to the left always, confirm plans, then go to the NPC over here, and you're just gonna run the blueprint. So for this strategy, you're just gonna do as many blueprints per hour as possible. So you're gonna focus on getting the rewards at the end and basically gamble to get the good rewards, which most of the time are gonna be some of the bases, replicas, and occasionally tempering and tailoring orb. But very often you're just gonna get nothing. So this strategy highly depends on the prices of blueprints. If they are cheap, you can do it. If they are very expensive, it actually might not be worth it. Also, to reduce the cost of a blueprint, you can still open some of the rooms to get a little bit extra currency, because some of them are gonna be immediately revealed without using any reveals. Now for the second strategy, that's gonna be basically the opposite, where you want to get as much loot as possible from each blueprint. So to do that, you're gonna have to run some of the contracts to get reveals, and you basically have to run deception, counter, or the perception to get the Gianna reveals. So you're gonna put them in here, and you're gonna always choose the Gianna, because Gianna is gonna give you, on top of getting the Wakana reveal, she's gonna give you the special Gianna reveal, which reduces cost of the revealing. In my opinion, perception is too annoying to run, because Gianna has very low level of perception. So with the equipment level 3, counter has level 4, and deception level 6. If you remove it, it's even lower. So she's not gonna do the job too fast, so it's gonna take a lot of time to do perception. Counter is still fine, deception is obviously the best, but deception usually are very expensive, usually around 10 chaos. So if you can buy counter for up to 3 to 4 chaos, I would prefer to do these. If you can buy deception maybe up to like 7 chaos, it's probably still worth it. But yeah, in my opinion, I just prefer to run counter, which are a little bit longer, but not too expensive. But also, you have to remember, if you have +1 to level job, you only have level 4 of the counter, which means that if you use the level 5 counter, you're not gonna be able to use Gianna. So I'm gonna show you here, I do have a bunch of level 5 perception and counter, because I just cannot run them. Usually when I buy them in bulk, I buy like 20, 50 of them, and I just take out some of the level 4, level 5s, so I just take my losses. And speaking of buying the contracts and blueprints in bulk, I just want to remind you that this week we got some changes to the trading. So now you can actually buy and sell contracts and blueprints in bulk. So you just go to this section over here, click on Heist and contracts and blueprints. And let's say you want to buy deception. You don't really care about a level of the contract, so you just choose all of the deception ones. Let's say you want to buy at least 5, and you can find a lot of them in bulk. So for these, I actually wouldn't really mind paying 5 chaos. So as you can see, there is a bunch of them on sale. And if you want the contracts with counter, you basically do the same thing, but just contracts, but the counter, and you can buy them for 1 chaos, 2 chaos. Here there is someone with 38 of them for 2 chaos, so you don't have to pay for them that much. And you can do the same thing with blueprints. You go here and you can buy a bunch of them. Unfortunately, most of them are not gonna sell. Most of the time, we're gonna have to buy them for 15 chaos as of right now. Okay, so going back to the strategy, you want to run some of the contracts to get the Gianna and regular reveals, and then you want to go to the Wakano, put in the contract, and you want to use the Gianna reveals. I don't have any right now, but you want to use Gianna reveals on the wings, because the wings cost a lot. Let's say you would use Wakano, you would have to pay 3.6k for this one, 3.9k for this one, 3.3k for this one. So this one would be 11 chaos to reveal it. This one would be even more. So you would basically pay the same amount as for the blueprint, but you would also have to run the contract, so it would just never be worth it. With Gianna, it is worth it, but you still have to run contract, which is additional time. So it basically depends on the economy, and if you want to save some money by running contracts or not, but you're gonna have to spend more time by running contracts. So that's why I was saying there is not a single best one to run blueprints right now. It's kind of personal preference if you want to run contracts or not, and if you want to have a little bit more consistent profit or not. And when it comes to revealing rooms, well, for that, I would refer to my list. Like I said, I would just reveal the essence rooms for this one, for example, and that's basically it. And you want to use the Wakano reveals for it. And here you could also reveal fragment, but it's already revealed, and so on. So after you would, let's say, here you would reveal all of these free wings, then you would reveal with Wakano some of the rooms. You would take it and again go to the planning. For this one, you can min-max a little bit more when it comes to the your rogue members, and you could go for the, let's say, reduce raising of alerts, so you can open more rooms if you have a lot of rooms in the wing. This one, Cars, is still the obvious choice because he's just the best out of these three. Here, you could actually go for Vindiri for duplicating the rewards if you would have him leveled up. I just personally always just go for the highest level because I just want to do them as fast as possible. So again, you would confirm plans and you would just run the blueprint with opening all of the chests that you revealed. Now there is the third way of running OFM, which is actually what I did for the test, and I would recommend doing it this way because in my opinion it is the most efficient one, but it is also the most annoying one to set up. So for this one, I would start with running a bunch of contracts. Again, it doesn't really matter if it's counter or deception, personal preference. I prefer to save some money, so I would run counter. Then you buy a bunch of blueprints, and then you go through them and you check how many of the rooms that you want to reveal they have. So this one doesn't have a single one, so I would keep it here. This one has 2 essences, so I would put it on the side. It also has 7 fragments, so if you would want to reveal fragment, you would also put it on the side. This one has 1 essence, this one has 0 essences, this one has 2 essences, and so on, and I'll just go through all of them. So here I have 4 with essences, and here I have 1, 2, and 3 without a single essence. So these ones I would do the first way. So I would just go and plan them, and I would just run them as a 1 wing. And these ones I would reveal them. And for this I would go to Wakano and I would check which wings have essences in them. So I would swap to Gianna. This one has 1 essence, I would reveal this. This one has a 1 essence, I would reveal this. This one doesn't, so I would actually keep it. You can still reveal it because of the fragments, but again, that's up to you if you want to go for 2 different rooms. I just didn't want to run that many contracts, so I opted out of it. I went just for the essences. So I would reveal these 2, then I would swap to Wakano. Maybe essence would already be revealed in these ones, maybe not, and then I would have to reveal them if they wouldn't be revealed. And now I think is a good time to talk about the rogue gear. Because the rogue gear you want to use is gonna depend a little bit on what you are doing. So I personally think in the cloak and this slot, I think it's called gear actually. I think this is called gear, this is tool, this is cloak, and this is brooch. So in the gear slot, you just want to go for the job speed. This one also has some aura nodes. So if you want maybe haste, maybe hatred for more damage, depending on build what you are using, you can get some kind of aura in here. But I would just get as high tier of job speed as possible. On cloak, same thing, you just want job speed. On cloak, you can also get some reduction for the alert level. So if you like revealing a bunch of rooms and just running big heists with as many wings and revealed rooms as possible, you might get some additional alert level. But for me personally, I just went for job speed. On the tool slot, you want to get +1 level of all jobs, especially for Vijayana, because this is gonna reduce the cost of revealing from 40 to 45. This text is actually bugged, it always has been bugged. It says it's 30 and with this it says 35, but if you go to Wakano, put it in here, it actually says it's 45, and I did test it. This one is actually the correct one. It is 45%. So this one is very important because increasing the level is also gonna increase this. And it's the same thing for the other one. Cars, 45%, without it, it's 40, and so on. So it's very important to have +1 level to all jobs, or +1 level to the highest job. So for this case, it would be brute force if you are running the blueprints and contracts with just the highest level job, like what I was doing. Also, you can get some additional job speed in here, but nothing else is really important. Now for the last slot, which is brute, things change a little bit depending on what you are doing. So the most important thing is again job speed, just like in these two slots. You can also get job speed in here, so you can get job speed actually on every single slot. But again, here the more important one is +1 level to jobs. And here you can also get 20% of each one, but as you can see here, I actually don't have 20% everywhere because I decided to focus more on the increased rewards, which is the heist chests have chance to duplicate contained scarabs. And with the tier 1, it is up to 15%. So if you are using 3 rogues for blueprint, you have 45% chance to duplicate scarab. And this is the best one because if we are running with essences, you have a chance to duplicate essence scarabs. But also from the fragment rooms, you can duplicate all of the scarabs you get from there. And even if you are not revealing some of the other rooms, you are still gonna open them from time to time, like divination rooms, maybe harbinger, and so on. So all of these rooms contain some kind of scarabs, so you're gonna have a chance to duplicate them. So in my opinion, doesn't matter what you're doing, which room you are doing, you're probably gonna want to use the chance to duplicate contained scarab. The only way you would use anything else is if you would run the stacked decks and currency rooms. So then you would want to use the chance to duplicate basic currency, because stacked deck actually counts as the basic currency. And that's what I was also using on Jayana. But when I was running contracts, I actually would swap the brute for this one. This one has increased job speed, but it also has increased rogue's marker value of primary heist target. And this one is important for contracts because, of course, you're gonna get the reward at the end that you can sell for rogue markers. So this one is a tier 1, and you're just gonna get more rogue markers. There's pretty much no reason to not run it when you do contracts. That's why it's better to just run a bunch of contracts in a row and then blueprint, not just like 3 contracts, then blueprints, and so on, because then you would have to constantly swap brooches. If you run, let's say, 100 contracts, you use this, then you swap to blueprints, and you put this one back. Also, on Jayana, you can get on the tool, the mod, chance on the completing heist to generate an additional reveal with Wakano. That one I just got by luck. I wouldn't focus on this too much. Definitely +1 level of job is more important. But this chance can come in handy if you are revealing a bunch of different rooms. And I definitely was using more Wakano reveals for essence rooms than the Jayana reveals for wings, so it actually is pretty good mod. Okay, so to summarize different ways of running contracts and blueprints, the easiest way you can run the blueprints is to just buy a bunch of them and use them as a one-wing blueprints, and just focus on getting the rewards at the end, and you can still get some rewards on your way that are pre-revealed. This way you're gonna get the most amount of rewards at the end, but you're gonna also pay quite a lot for each blueprint, because right now they go for 15 chaos. If economy changes and maybe rogue markers are very expensive, so revealing every additional room and wing is not really worth it, and blueprints are maybe cheap, then the strategy suddenly becomes way better. On the opposite side, you might want to focus on the passive rewards, so just run a bunch of contracts, blueprints, and then reveal essence rooms, fragment rooms, maybe even more if you want to, and just get good consistent amount of rewards. But remember, if you do it this way, you're gonna spend more time in blueprints, which means you're not gonna get as many rewards at the end, which in my opinion is the most exciting part of Heist, so I just really like gambling for big rewards that you can get from blueprints at the end. And then the third way, which is more consistent one, which is what I like to do, is just run some contracts, then reveal only the wings of the blueprints that have some good rewards, like for example essences. So you just want to sort your blueprints, take out the ones that don't have that many good rooms, you just run them as one wings, and the ones that have good rooms, you reveal them. And for the gear, depending on what strategy you are doing, if you are opening a bunch of rooms with scarabs, you want to use brooch with chance to duplicate scarab. If you run with currency, you want to duplicate basic currency. If you just are rushing blueprints without opening almost any chest, you might straight up just want to focus on job speed. So for example here, instead of having 10% job speed, I would go for 20% and that's it. But you still want to go for +1 level of all jobs because it also increases the or reduces the time the rogues have to spend to do their job. So it is pretty much always the best mod. And now the last thing I want to talk about before I jump into the test results, I want to talk about the builds for Heist. So when it comes to league starting with Heist, I don't think there's a single best build you can go for. You probably just want to go something with Ranger because all 3 ascendancies for Ranger give you a bunch of movement speed, so all of them are gonna be good. But that's basically what you want to focus on, just as much movement speed as possible, good defense so you don't die, so you don't lose your rewards, and you don't really need that much damage. Especially if you have a bunch of job speed on your followers, you pretty much never will even have to kill anything. And because of that, I decided to do this build, which actually doesn't even have a single damaging ability, which focuses just on defense and the movement speed. Because with the amount of job speed I have, my followers are just always opening everything before anything hits them. Maybe sometimes something hits them, but then you just use the decoy totem or void sphere to pull enemies off, and the followers not gonna have any issues with opening the doors or the chests. I'm not gonna go in depth when it comes to this build. I already made a video about it, so I'm gonna link it in the description. And I'm probably gonna make another one going a little bit more in depth about this build, because in my last video I only mentioned it briefly, and I also changed already some things. But just to show you right now, my movement speed on this build is 670% without counting the action speed, so I believe it's somewhere around 800% maybe. I'm not too sure. Okay, so now let's move on to the test results. So again, I did 100 blueprints, and I was revealing some of them, and some of them I was not revealing, and the ones I was revealing, I was only revealing the ones with essence rooms. So here are all of the rewards that I got. So here are just some random currencies. Most of them came from the end of the blueprint, because you very often get stack of currency. That's why I have so many chaos orbs, because I would pretty much always get chaos orbs if I saw some of them and everything else was useless. And I also got 12 divines. Some of them came from chest, most of them came from the reward at the end. And same thing with exalts and the annuls. And here on the side we can see some tailoring and tempering orb. Right now tempering goes for 50 chaos, tailoring goes for 40. I actually priced them a little bit different on the spreadsheet I'm gonna show you, because I priced them in bulk. And here we have all of the essences. So as you can see, there is a lot of essences, a lot of the regular ones, stability, which actually are cheaper than the regular ones. Here are the ascend ones, which are worth between 20 and 30 chaos usually, and the classification, which are between 50 and 100 chaos, depending on the day and the hour. And also if you sell them in bulk or only maybe like 1 or 2. And then in the second tab, we have all of the rewards that I got at the end that are considered, I would say, rare rewards. So here we have the replica Restless World. I believe there is 9 of them. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 of them. I got Alternating Scepter, which you can split, and now there is a new recipe with triple split, so you have to have an item with 6 modifiers on it, so you might want to craft the 6 mod if it only has 5 mod, and then you can use Black Morrigan with Hanuma Plague Arachnid, and you get 3 Alternating Scepters. Then we have Fulcrum. It actually has been going up in price, so right now it goes for... Oh, it's only 3 divine, so yesterday it was 7, and I did this test yesterday, and I also made a spreadsheet yesterday, so that's the prices I'm gonna use. And then we have Replica Emberwake, which is pretty cheap. At the beginning of the league it was way more expensive. It was actually selling for like 2 divines, but unfortunately it's going down in price. Iron Mass, it's like 20-30 chaos, and Duedri's Deming, it's only good if it has high percentage increased effect of your curses. So this one is 15%, this one is 14%. And here are some of the other white items, which are like 10 to 30 chaos, but I actually decided to not include them in the test results. And in the last tab, we just have a bunch of random rewards, so a bunch of scarabs from mostly from the scarab room, some essences, the fossils, and stacked decks. Oh, and also the catalyst. So even without revealing the divination and ultimatum and fossil rooms, as you can see, I still got quite a lot of these rewards just for free. Okay, so now finally let's look at the spreadsheet. So for this test, again, I did 100 blueprints, and I had to run 90 contracts to reveal them. I didn't have to run 100 because, like I said, I wasn't revealing all of them, only the ones that had the essence runes on them. And then I had to buy almost 250,000 markers. I did drop some of them from the contracts, so I think I used up around 400,000, but 160k I did drop from the contracts, so that's why they are not included in the cost. And again, I am using the prices from yesterday because I did this whole test yesterday and I prepared the spreadsheet. I just didn't want to redo all of the prices again. So that's why it's from yesterday. Divine price was 130. I think right now they went up in price. Yeah, 144. I guess I can maybe change this thing only. Let's put 144. It's gonna be a little bit less profit per hour in divines now. Contracts, I did spend 2 hours on them, and for the blueprints I did spend 5 hours, which means I did spend in total 7 hours. Here there are some interesting numbers, like how many one wing I did run, how many I revealed without any essences, because I did end up revealing some of them because I just had some remaining Gianna blueprints after I revealed all of the rooms with Wakano. Here are the amount of blueprints I revealed with essence rooms, and overall there was 141 essence rooms in all of these blueprints, which means that just from the scarabs and the essences together, I added all of them together, each room on average did make me a little bit less than 18 chaos. And again, prices of these scarabs are changing, so it might go down, it might go up, maybe it's gonna be more expensive, but probably not. It's probably just gonna continue going down. So in terms of profit breakdown, 3,700 chaos I made from just random currencies, and this includes all of the catalysts, fossils, actually not stack decks, but just catalysts and fossils. And from the random scarabs, so scarabs that dropped from all of the rooms except for the essences, I made 1000 chaos, stack decks 500 chaos. Essences, even though I was revealing all of them, made only 500 chaos. This is why scarabs are such a big deal when it comes to these rooms. I made 1.8k from them. Tailoring orbs, almost 1000 chaos, and from all of the bases, so you can see prices in here, I made 2000 chaos. If you want to check the results maybe like a few days later and see how much I would make from this test, you can just go here, change the prices, and I'm gonna link the spreadsheet in the description. Just change prices of these items in here, and it should update the Spreadsheet. The only thing you kind of cannot do is the currency, random scarabs, and essences, because these things I did price check with the Excellence. So in total, I made a little bit more than 10,000 chaos, which is 56 divines. So I made 8 divines per hour. But I actually am not gonna lie, I think I got pretty unlucky in here. I didn't get that many good rewards at the end. And right after I finished this test, in the next 20 blueprints, I found Replica Headhunter, which is like 5 divines, and also Replica Alberon Warpath, which I sold for 12 divines. And also 1 day earlier, before this test, in 1 day, I think I got 3 times as much money from the rare end rewards done during that test. So I think this one was a little bit more on the unlucky side, but that's just the strategy. Sometimes gonna get unlucky, sometimes gonna get lucky. That's why maybe going for the strategy where you just run blueprints without any revealing might be sometimes better, because you have basically more chances to get lucky, to get something good at the end. But then if you get unlucky and you run, let's say, 300 blueprints and you didn't get anything good, you're not gonna get any of these consistent rewards, so you might make less. But that's basically everything so far I know about Heist. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave questions in the comments or join my Discord and ask me over there. So that's gonna be it for this video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.